Ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, this new Fortnite season is something to say the least. Now that we've had a couple days to play the new season and figure things out, we have a lot to unpack. What did Epic do right? What did Epic do wrong? What kind of impact is this sort of off-brand season having? And should we be expecting any sort of changes? We're gonna get right into things. I have a background gameplay that will roll here in a little bit. Most part it's a duos trios game because one of our boys ends up having to dip. And you're not gonna believe this, but it's actually in builds. So with all that out of the way, just help a fellow bro out, drop a like on the video, sub to the channel if you're new. We're almost at 10K. Now let's get straight into it. So as we all know by now, just from playing for a couple of days, this new season is very controversial. On the one hand, you have people that are absolutely having a blast with this car-dominated meta, and on the other, you have people who are just not really happy about it at all. And neither side is right or wrong, because you definitely can't be mad at people for having fun with something, and you also can't be mad at the people who are loading up Fortnite expecting to play something that looks a little bit more like Fortnite. But regardless of what side of that you fall into, it's pretty clear that this new look is having a negative impact on Epic Games. Here are the numbers that back that up. This new season, Chapter 5, Season 3, dropped on Friday. It peaked at 2.28 million concurrent players. For reference, that isn't even half of the concurrent player peak for either Seasons 1 or 2 of Chapter 5, both of which peaked at well over 5 million players. Essentially, what this means is a good chunk of the player base is loading up the game, not liking what they see, and in effect, not staying on. Now, really quick, if you want my take on the season, I personally prefer the more typical Fortnite experience. But I have also been able to enjoy this new season a lot more when I'm playing with friends. So if you're struggling to find the fun, take it from me. It's a lot more enjoyable when you got 2, 3, maybe 4 of your boys all in a trail smasher riding around trying to wreak havoc on the map. Now, with all that being said, with the numbers laid out, what did Epic do right and what did they do wrong? For starters, I think that they got the majority of the loot pool right. Pretty much every weapon in the game right now can be super effective, while at the same time, none of them are really game breaking. They have good mobility between the shockwaves, the fists, and obviously the vehicles. Pretty much all of the mythics are just regular weapons that are a little bit of a step up from their legendary rarities. There's no giant anime orb that practically guarantees you a win if you get it. I think all of those things are fairly consensus among the player base. Now, what did they do wrong? Well, this whole car-based meta isn't objectively right or wrong. It didn't really leave players any sort of counter to the vehicles outside of other vehicles. The boom bow can serve as a little bit of a jab from time to time, but in most situations like those super hectic endgames, when most people still have their fully modded out cars, it's just simply not enough. Just as a general rule of thumb for multiplayer video games, the less you allow for differing playstyles, typically the worse off the game is. Without any counters to the vehicles, that's kind of what we're seeing with Fortnite right now, and I think that's reflective in the numbers we touched on earlier. Items like the EMPs and the Anvil launcher, both of which we've had earlier this chapter, in my opinion would serve as perfect counters for the vehicles. But obviously what they did wrong here was leaving them out of the season where they would be most relevant. I don't play builds too often at all, so I can't have much of an opinion on this. But the one other thing that they may have gotten quote-unquote wrong is basically allowing the nitro effect and vehicles to render builds sometimes useless. Now, as an outsider looking in, the clips look pretty funny to me, but I can definitely see how that would leave some people pretty upset. To sum it up, I would say that the majority of Fortnite's player base would say that Epic did most things outside of cars very well this season. Once again, I want to emphasize that this car-based meta is not objectively right or wrong, just extremely controversial. Which brings us to our next question. Should we be expecting any sort of changes? Well, if you've been playing Fortnite for a while, you'd know that when there's such widespread negative feedback about something, Epic usually tends to be pretty willing to come in and make a big change, usually in the form of a nerf. We saw situations like this with the new movement at the start of Chapter 5, where Epic just straight up reverted it, with the original P90 all the way back in Chapter 1. Now, obviously, the one exception to this rule has been collaboration items, because those are a part of a brand deal. They can't just take out those sort of items off schedule. As far as this new vehicle meta goes, even though there has been some positive feedback, there's probably been at least 5 times the amount of negative feedback. While there is a Fallout collab this season, the vehicles themselves are not necessarily a part of that. I believe with all of that being said, it's not very crazy to expect some sort of change coming in the very near future. When your peak concurrent players gets more than cut in half from the previous season, I personally don't see how you can't be forced to at least make some sort of change. But don't expect any of the vehicles to be taken out. Don't expect any of the vehicle mods to be removed. Epic puts a ton of effort into making each season feel unique, and they will not pivot that hard. For when change does come, expect something like lowering the health of vehicles or their fuel capacity, maybe even a slight nerf to something like the turret. Obviously, Epic also continues to add content as the season progresses. We could see some sort of new counters to vehicles added to the game, whether that's EMPs, Anvil launchers, launchers or something entirely different. Now, the final thing I want to touch on regarding this season is the end games. The reason I chose this gameplay for this video is because it's actually one of the most rare types of end games you're going to see in this season, at least up to this point. At this point in the game, nobody's vehicle is left intact, so everybody's just playing the typical Fortnite style that we're all accustomed to. If you've played in your fair share of end games this season, you know that's typically not how things play out. Usually there's about 7 or 8 different cars driving around shooting their mounted turrets at each other, and maybe 1 or 2 people outside of vehicles who are usually simultaneously running for their lives while shooting their boom bows. If the vehicles do ever completely leave the equation, it's usually not until the final 2 or 3 people, and that is all if you could get a regular game. Till literally just a few hours ago, there was a widespread car glitch, which people were running into both on accident and on purpose. Posted my encounter with it on TikTok if you want to go check it out. Essentially, it was making players invisible to the point where they couldn't take damage from anything, not even the storm. A lot of games just by default were being won by the person in the lobby who got this glitch, and if multiple people had got it, games would be going on for hours on end. It was essentially a competition to see whose console or PC would blow up last, or just to be the last person to get tired of waiting and wanting to play another game. But like I said, thankfully that one got patched, because if you were on the wrong side of it, it was literally impossible for you to win games, or on the other side of it, literally impossible to lose games unless you just left. So all in all, to say the least, it's been a super hectic start to the season for all of us, but especially Epic Games. There's been some good, there's been some bad, and once again, nothing is confirmed, but it wouldn't be too crazy at all to expect some sort of change to be coming to the game. But ladies and gentlemen, with this gameplay wrapping up, that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I thank you all so much for watching, and it means the absolute world to me. Please, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, sub to the channel if you're new, and if you really want to help me out, use code BIFLESS30 in the item shop. With that being said, I love you all so much. God bless, and I will catch you in the next one.